You think a green card means easy reentry? 2025 changed that. Picture this. You land, scan your fingerprints, the officer tilts their head, and suddenly you're in secondary inspection. This isn't drama for clicks. It's what more permanent residents are running into this year. Here's the plan for today. I'm going to pull back the curtain on 7 rules shaping your travel. Who gets waved through, who gets questioned, and how long you can be away before your status starts to wobble. And I won't just explain them. I'll show you how to travel and come home clean, so your trip ends with a hug at arrivals, not a stack of forms in a fluorescent room. So, which rules matter most in 2025? Let's break down the 7 you can't afford to miss. We're starting with rule number 1. The news calls it a ban, but the real issue is what happens at the airport gate, and how one short sentence can make or break your reentry. Start here. Travel smarter, keep your status solid. Ready? The headlines call it a ban, but for green card holders, it's less black and white. On paper, you're exempt. In practice, you can still get flagged the moment your passport or flight history lines up with one of the restricted countries. That's geography at work. It's not about how long you were gone. It's about where. Sometimes you sail through. Sometimes you're stuck in secondary for hours, even if you only stayed a week. One viewer told me his wife, a green card holder from the Philippines, flew back this summer after 3.5 weeks abroad. She answered 3 basic questions, showed her documents, and they were through. So what's the move? Keep your story clear and tight. I live in Dallas. I visited family abroad for 3 weeks. I'm back at work Monday. Then show a pay stub, lease, or utility bill. Officers aren't fishing for drama. They're checking if your U.S. life lines up with your travel. Being exempt doesn't mean being invisible. Geography alone can still slow you down. Next, we're getting into the rule that catches even more people, the quiet 6-month trap. Stay away too long, and your green card itself is on the line. This is the rule that feels the most ordinary, just staying away too long. Yet it's the one that quietly wrecks more green card cases than any headline ban ever could. 6 months is the wall. Cross it, and the officer can decide you've broken continuity of residence. That matters for 2 reasons. Your naturalization clock can reset, and in the worst case, your U.S. residency itself looks abandoned. Even emergencies don't erase that timeline. A California father who stayed abroad 9 months for inheritance issues is now in court fighting abandonment charges. There is a shield, though, the reentry permit, Form I-131. File it before leaving, and you carry proof your long absence was planned and approved. Remember this. Backlogs in 2025 are brutal, so file early or don't count on them at all. And here's a quick pro tip. If you're working towards citizenship, pad your timeline. One commenter reminded us, if you know you'll be away more than 6 months, think ahead. Delay your N400 by a year or 2. Rebuild continuity, then apply. It's frustrating, yes, but it's safer than rushing and getting denied. Bottom line, never gamble with the 6-month rule. Because losing a return flight is annoying. Losing your green card is life-altering. And if you think family ties will automatically save you, think again. Rule number 3 is where spouses and parents get pulled into the microscope. Your relationship might be real, but unless it's documented, the system won't believe it. What proves you belong more, a marriage certificate or the neighbor who knows you both by name? That's the twist in 2025. Immigration officers don't just want to see a wedding date on paper. They want to see that your daily life actually feels like a household rooted in the U.S. And it doesn't take a thick binder to show it. Sometimes it's the subtle trails, the same address on school records, a joint order history on Amazon, both phones listed at the doctor's office, or the fact you booked your flights together. These details tell a story that feels lived, not staged. One couple in Newark proved this the easy way. No giant folder, no drama. They answered questions about their apartment the same way, laughed about the neighbor who always borrowed their ladder, and then pulled up a joint airline receipt. Interview over. So think of it this way. The strongest proof isn't stamped in ink. It's the rhythm of your daily life. Keep memberships active, bills flowing, kids' records current, and you walk in with confidence. Let those ties go dark, and you risk a grilling when you're jet-lagged and racing to catch a connection. Quick question for you. Have you ever leaned on a small real-life detail to prove your household was real? Drop it in the comments. I'm really curious to hear your story. Who knows, it might even shape the next video. And once money enters the picture, the stakes climb even higher. That's where rule number 4 comes in, where paychecks and tax records can outweigh family ties. Here's the shift in 2025. Officers want more than your words about where you live. They want proof in your financial life. You might assume you need wealth to pass that test. Not at all. Imagine this. A single on-time tax return can be the difference between a smooth reentry and hours in a holding room. It's not about riches. It's about rhythm. Yearly tax filings that never skip a beat. A paycheck that lands at the same U.S. address month after month. A credit card that's still active, even if you only swipe it for groceries. These aren't flashy signals, but they paint a picture of roots planted in one place. But what if the finances don't line up? Picture yourself at JFK, bags waiting on the carousel while you're stuck in a side room. All it took was one closed account or a missing W-2. That single gap can flip the officer's mindset from welcome back to prove you didn't move abroad. So how do you stay safe? Keep the basics alive. File your taxes on time. Keep at least one U.S. bank or credit line open. Renew your ID before it expires. And let those everyday bills flow to your American address. Boring? Yes. But boring is exactly what gets you waved through in 5 minutes instead of 5 hours. Think of it this way. Family ties can be explained away. Emotions can be doubted. But numbers that line up? Hard to argue against. In 2025, financial stability isn't just money. It's your boarding pass home. And don't go anywhere, because rule number 5 takes it off paper entirely. Even if your finances are perfect, what happens when an officer pulls up your Instagram feed? This one feels a little strange because it's not about your passport or your tax return. It's about your online footprint. Here's the reality. Immigration officers do check social media, travel patterns, even old posts. They're not scrolling for fun. They're looking for anything that clashes with the story you're telling at the border. I know it sounds over the top, but think about it. Ever posted a throwback selfie from another country while you were supposed to be living in the U.S.? Or maybe you liked or shared something years ago that looks political or critical, out of context. To you, it's nothing. To an officer with a file in front of them, it's a question mark. There have been cases where people came back from a trip and the officer already knew their itinerary because it was sitting right there on Instagram. The trip itself wasn't a violation, but it set the tone for a longer conversation. Here's how to play it smart without overthinking every post. Keep old accounts private if you don't use them. Double check what's public before you travel. And if your feed shows something that might raise eyebrows, like a vacation that was really work, carry backup proof in your travel folder. The point isn't to live in fear. It's to make sure your story, your documents, and yes, even your online trail all line up. And let me throw this out to you. Would you feel comfortable if an officer scrolled through your last 10 posts? Drop your honest take in the comments. I bet the answers will be all over the map. And here's where it gets even more intense. Online identity is one thing, but when your legal identity itself doesn't match, like gender markers on different documents, that's when the airport experience shifts from routine to personal. Have you ever handed over your green card and passport only for the officer to pause a little too long? The photo looks like you, but the gender marker or the name on one ID doesn't line up with the other. Suddenly, what should have been a 30-second check turns into a longer back and forth with possible delays or questions. That's the reality some green card holders face in 2025, especially transgender, non-binary, and intersex travelers. For years, U.S. documents allowed an X gender marker. Airlines, however, don't always accept it. Some reservation systems still only recognize M or F. And while customs officers are supposed to follow policy, bias and confusion can still creep in. The stories people share are exhausting. Travelers pulled aside for hours because one document said female, and another still showed male. Others asked invasive personal questions that had nothing to do with travel, missing connections in the process. It's not about legality. Your green card is still valid. It's about delay, dignity, and stress. So what can you do if you're affected? Bring more than one form of ID. Green card, passport, driver's license. Carry all and keep them in one slim folder for quick access. If you've gone through a legal name change or marker update, keep a copy of the court order or supporting paperwork with you. You don't owe anyone your medical history, but having a folder of documents that match your reality gives you control in the moment. And here's the most important part. Know your rights. You cannot be denied reentry because of a gender marker mismatch, but you can be delayed. The goal is to shorten that gap, give officers less space to get confused and more reason to close your file quickly. It's frustrating that something so personal can hold up something so routine. But planning ahead means you're not left vulnerable to a system that hasn't fully caught up. And if you think expired cards and renewal delays are safer territory, think again. Rule number 7 is where paperwork backlogs collide with airlines that don't always know the rules, leaving travelers stuck overseas with no way to board. Here's a detail that's already caught many green card holders off guard. Since September 2024, USCIS gives a 36-month automatic extension when you file to renew your green card. Sounds reassuring, but here's the real snag: airlines. And that's where passengers hit a wall. Airline staff often don't recognize that notice. To them, an expired card looks expired. End of discussion. There are stories of permanent residents standing at the counter, suitcase in hand, being told they couldn't board until a manager checked the USCIS website in real time. Imagine the panic of being stranded abroad when you've actually done everything right. So how do you stay safe? Apply for renewal early, at least 6 months before your card runs out. Always carry both your physical card and the official USCIS receipt. And here's an extra layer of protection. Print the USCIS policy page that explains the extension and keep it in your travel folder. Some travelers have literally pulled that page up on their phones to convince agents to let them fly. It may feel absurd, but that little piece of paper can mean the difference between getting home on time or being stuck overnight in another country. So don't wait until the last minute. Get ahead of renewals and make sure you've got the documents to back you up. In 2025, a clean paper trail goes beyond good practice. It's your boarding pass home. Before we close, let's touch on a few special cases, the ones that often catch travelers off guard. Asylum travel. If your green card came through asylum, even a short visit back home can raise red flags. But don't panic. Sometimes one short legal consult before you fly is all it takes to avoid a disaster. Tips and halfway living. USCIS sometimes acts on tips, especially if someone spends most of the year abroad but still taps U.S. benefits. Keep your U.S. ties documented and louder than anyone's rumor. Citizenship timing. Trips over 6 months don't just slow reentry. They can reset your naturalization clock. Plan your N400 when your record is strong and the process stays smooth. So what does all this add up to? Being a green card holder in 2025 means far more than carrying a card. It's about showing, again and again, that your real life is rooted here. From how long you're away, to what you post online, to whether your bills and taxes line up, every detail tells a story. The good news? Once you know the rules, you can plan ahead. Build that simple travel folder. Renew early. Keep your ties visible. Do that, and you'll walk through with confidence, not fear. Quick note before we wrap. This video is information, not legal advice. If your situation is complicated, long absences, asylum history, old charges, talk to an immigration attorney before you fly. That one step could save you months of stress. And now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 7 rules do you think is the toughest? Have you ever been pulled into secondary inspection, or was your reentry smooth? Drop your story in the comments. You might save someone else from the same headache. If this video gives you clarity, hit like so more people can find it, share it with anyone who travels on a green card, and subscribe for more practical breakdowns on immigration, travel, and life in the U.S. Stay informed, travel smart, and I'll see you in the next one.